"We have big news," Faye announced, her voice carrying that particular lilt it always had when she was about to remind everyone of her generosity. My husband Emmett tensed beside me at the dining table, and I instinctively placed my hand on his knee under the tablecloth. Sunday dinner at the Caldwell family home had been a tradition since Emmett and I got married 3 years ago. Every week, we gathered around Faye and Harrison's oversized mahogany dining table for a meal that was always exquisitely prepared, not by Faye herself, but by the private chef she hired for these occasions. The perfect roast, the flawlessly seasoned vegetables, the imported wine, everything designed to remind us of the wealth gap between Emmett's surgeon parents and me, a public school teacher with student loans that would outlive me. "What is it, Mother?" asked Linnea, Emmett's younger sister, who at 27 still lived at home and worked at her father's hospital administration office. Faye's perfectly manicured hand reached for her wine glass, her diamond tennis bracelet catching the light from the chandelier above. "Your father and I have decided to make a major investment for Emmett and Simone." I glanced at Emmett, whose face reflected the same confusion I felt. We hadn't discussed any investments with his parents. In fact, we'd been consciously working to establish financial independence from them, something Faye seemed determined to undermine at every turn. "We bought you a house," Harrison stated flatly, joining the conversation for the first time since the meal began. Unlike his wife, who wrapped her manipulation in smiles and backhanded compliments, Harrison was direct, almost clinical in his approach to family matters. The silence that followed was absolute. Emmett's fork clattered against his plate as he set it down too forcefully. What?" he finally managed, his voice tight. "A house," Faye repeated, beaming. "In Oakwood Heights. 4 bedrooms, 3.5 baths, on a 1/4 acre. Perfect for starting a family." She directed this last part at me, her eyes dropping momentarily to my midsection before meeting my gaze again with pointed significance. My stomach lurched. The constant pressure about grandchildren was bad enough. Now they were literally buying us a house to fill with babies? "We haven't asked for a house," I said carefully, trying to keep my voice level. "We're happy in our apartment. That cramped 2-bedroom, Faye dismissed with a wave. "You can't raise children there. Besides, the neighborhood is, well, let's just say it's not ideal." What she meant was that our diverse, vibrant neighborhood with its mix of young professionals, students, and working-class families didn't meet her standards of prestige. We loved our community, with its small local businesses, community garden, and neighbors who actually knew each other's names. "Mother, we appreciate the thought, but," Emmett began, but Faye cut him off. "It's already done. We closed last week." She pulled an envelope from beside her plate and slid it across the table. "Here's the deed and keys. We've put it in both your names. All you need to do is move in." I stared at the envelope, a beautifully wrapped prison sentence. This wasn't a gift. It was a leash. "This is unexpected," Emmett said diplomatically, though I could feel the tension radiating from him. "It's what family does," Harrison stated, as if explaining a simple concept to a child. "We have the means to provide a proper home for our son and his wife. It's only natural we would do so." "We've been saving for our own home," I pointed out. "We want to do this ourselves." Faye's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "Simone, dear, at the rate you two are saving, you wouldn't be able to afford anything in a decent neighborhood for at least a decade. We're simply accelerating the process." The implication that our careful financial planning was inadequate stung, but it was nothing new. Since the day Emmett had introduced me as his girlfriend 6 years ago, Faye had made it clear that she found me lacking in pedigree, in ambition, in the particular brand of femininity she valued. "I think what Simone's trying to say," Emmett interjected, his voice stronger now, "is that we want to achieve these milestones on our own terms." "Your own terms," Harrison repeated, his tone making the phrase sound almost vulgar. "And how long should your mother and I wait for grandchildren while you two achieve things on your own terms?" And there it was, the real issue behind the house. Not our comfort or well-being, but their impatience for grandchildren, for a continuation of the Caldwell legacy. "That's not your decision to make," I said, the words escaping before I could filter them through my usual diplomatic screen. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees as all eyes turned to me. "Excuse me?" Faye said, her voice dangerously soft. The chandelier light suddenly felt harsh, spotlighting me as the family disruptor. I could have backpedaled, softened my words with a placating smile, the approach I'd taken countless times over the years. Instead, I met Faye's gaze directly. "When or if we have children isn't your decision," I repeated, my voice steadier than I felt. "And neither is where we live." Emmett's hand covered mine under the table, a silent gesture of support that gave me courage. "We're not accepting the house," he added, addressing both his parents. While we understand you meant it as a gift, it's not something we asked for or want. Faye's face cycled through several expressions in rapid succession. Shock, hurt, and finally, the tight smile that signaled an imminent guilt trip. After everything we've done for you both, she began, her voice taking on a wounded quality. The wedding we paid for, the honeymoon, helping with Simone's car when it broke down last year. All things you offered, Mom, not things we asked for, Emmett countered. And each time you've used it to exert control over our lives. Harrison set down his wine glass with deliberate care. Control? We're your parents, Emmett. We want what's best for you. What you think is best, I corrected quietly. Linnea, who had been watching this exchange with wide eyes, suddenly stood. I should check on dessert, she murmured, escaping to the kitchen. Conflict avoidance was her specialty, something I once envied but now recognized as a survival mechanism in this family. This isn't gratitude, Faye said, her voice hardening as she addressed me directly. I knew from the beginning you'd turn Emmett against us. You've never appreciated what it means to be part of this family. 6 years of accumulated resentments and swallowed responses rose in my throat. Every passive-aggressive comment about my career choice. Every helpful suggestion about my appearance. Every time she'd introduced me as Emmett's wife, the teacher, as if my identity began and ended with my relationship to her son and my modest profession. What it means to be part of this family, I repeated slowly, is to accept that nothing comes without strings. Every gift is a debt. Every gesture has an expectation attached. I took a deep breath. We're not accepting the house because we know exactly what it would cost us. Cost you? Harrison scoffed. It's paid for in full. We're not asking for anything in return. Except grandchildren, Emmett pointed out. And the right to dictate where we live, how we raise those children, probably which schools they attend. You're being ridiculous, Faye snapped. This is what families do. They help each other. They stay close. Close is one thing, Mother. Suffocating is another, Emmett said. Faye turned to me, her eyes narrowing. This is your influence. Emmett never spoke to us this way before you. It was the same accusation she'd made dozens of times, that I was somehow manipulating her son, turning him against his family, as if he couldn't possibly have formed his own opinions about their controlling behavior. Emmett is a grown man capable of his own thoughts, I said, and we're a partnership. This decision about the house is one we've made together. You could at least show some appreciation for the gesture, Harrison interjected. Do you have any idea the strings I had to pull to get that property? It wasn't even on the market yet. The neighborhood association president is a former patient. That's exactly the problem, Emmett said, frustration evident in his voice. You make these grand gestures without consulting us, then expect eternal gratitude when we never asked for them in the first place. Faye set down her napkin with a deliberate motion. I think you're both being incredibly ungrateful. This house would give you stability, security. It's in the best school district in the county. She gave me a pointed look. Something I'd think you'd appreciate, Simone, given your profession. What I'd appreciate is respect for our autonomy, I replied. For our right to build our lives according to our own values, not yours. Values, Faye repeated, making the word sound like a personal insult. Like living in that neighborhood where there was a break-in just last month? Like postponing children while Simone focuses on her career teaching other people's children instead of having her own? Each word was precisely calibrated to wound, to expose what she perceived as my selfishness. It was a familiar tactic, but this time, instead of shrinking under her disapproval, I felt a strange calm settle over me. We had been having variations of this same conversation for years, and nothing had changed. Nothing would change, unless we changed it. I looked at Emmett, and something in my expression must have communicated my thoughts, because he gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. We're done, I said, turning back to Faye and Harrison, not just with this conversation, with this entire dynamic. Done? Faye's voice rose an octave. What is that supposed to mean? I pushed my chair back from the table, the scrape against hardwood punctuating the tension. It means we're setting boundaries that should have been established years ago. Emmett stood alongside me, his presence solid and reassuring. We've tried hinting. We've tried gentle pushback. We've tried explaining. Nothing has worked because you don't actually want to hear us. This is absurd, Harrison said, clinical detachment slipping into irritation. We offer you a multi-million-dollar home, and you respond with accusations. It's not about the house, I said, surprising myself with my calm. It's about what the house represents, your refusal to respect our autonomy as adults. Autonomy? Faye practically spat the word. Is that what you call it when you turn my son against his family? Emmett's jaw tightened. Stop blaming Simone for decisions we make together. I'm not being manipulated. I'm choosing to stand with my wife because we're partners. Partners? Faye's gaze darkened. We're your family, Emmett. We've been here since before she arrived, and we'll be here long after. After what? I interrupted, heat rising in my chest. After I leave? After I die? Is that what you're hoping for, Faye? Don't be dramatic, she scoffed, though her eyes betrayed that I'd hit close to the mark. Harrison intervened, his tone patronizing. What your mother meant is that family bonds are permanent. You're going through a phase of independence. Eventually, you'll understand the importance of family legacy, of maintaining certain standards. The standards that say my career isn't prestigious enough, I challenged. That our neighborhood isn't exclusive enough? That my background isn't wealthy enough? We've never said that, Faye protested weakly. You've said it in 1,000 ways without using those exact words, I replied. The constant comments about how teaching is noble but limiting. The crime statistics you text Emmett after every minor incident near our apartment. Linnea reappeared, hovering uncertainly. The dessert is ready, she announced to nobody in particular. Linnea, please sit down, Emmett said. This involves you too. She sank into her chair, looking trapped. At 27, she still lived under their roof, still worked in the position her father had arranged, still sought their approval in everything. Here's what's going to happen, Emmett continued. We're declining the house. We'll continue living where we choose. We'll make our own decisions about our family planning without commentary from either of you. I picked up where he left off. If you want a relationship with us moving forward, it will be based on mutual respect. No more passive-aggressive comments. No more unsolicited advice. No more extravagant gifts that are actually attempts to direct our lives. Faye's face had gone pale, her perfect composure cracking. You can't be serious. We've never been more serious, Emmett affirmed. We'd rather have no relationship at all than continue with this toxic pattern. Toxic? Harrison echoed incredulously. Providing for our family is toxic now? When it comes with impossible expectations and constant judgment? Yes, I said. When it's used as leverage to control our choices? Absolutely. Faye's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. So that's it? After everything we've given you, you're prepared to walk away from this family? I took a deep breath, knowing my next words would either break this cycle or break us completely. We're not walking away from family. We're asking for a healthier version of it. But if the choice is between accepting your control or creating distance, then yes, we'd rather you disappear from our lives than continue this way. The silence that followed was deafening. Even Linnea seemed to be holding her breath. You don't mean that, Faye finally said, her voice lacking its usual certainty. We do, Emmett confirmed, and it's not a threat or a negotiation. It's a boundary we should have established long ago. Harrison stood abruptly, throwing his napkin onto his plate. I think you both need to leave my house and reconsider what you're saying. This conversation is over. You're right about one thing, I said, reaching for my purse. This conversation is over, because we've finally said what needed to be said. As we walked toward the door, Linnea moved to comfort her mother, who had buried her face in her hands in a display of hurt that might have been genuine or might have been manipulation. Outside, the evening air felt cleansing after the suffocating tension. Are you okay? Emmett asked, taking my hand. I nodded, surprising myself with how true it was. I am. Are you? He squeezed my fingers. I've never been more sure of anything. As we drove away from the imposing Caldwell mansion, I felt not the weight of what we might have lost, but the lightness of what we had reclaimed, our right to live authentically according to our own values rather than those imposed upon us. The week following our confrontation passed in a strange, suspended state. No calls from the Caldwells, no texts, no emails, an unprecedented silence from people who usually maintained constant contact under the guise of family closeness. Do you think they're respecting our boundaries? I asked Emmett one evening as we walked home from our favorite neighborhood Thai restaurant, the spring air filled with the scent of blooming trees. He laughed softly. That would be a first. No, they're either plotting their next move or waiting for us to break first. The guilt trip clock is ticking, I agreed. Any day now, your mother will send something designed to make us feel terrible. Or show up unannounced with reinforcements, Emmett added. Dad, Linnea, possibly the family lawyer. Despite the tension of waiting for the inevitable response, I felt lighter than I had in years. Our small apartment seemed cozier, our conversations easier, our laughter more frequent. As if we'd shed a weight we'd grown so accustomed to carrying that we'd forgotten how it felt to stand upright. On day 9, it happened. Not with the dramatic confrontation we'd expected, but with a simple text from Linnea to Emmett. Mom's in the hospital. Dad says you should come. We drove to the hospital in tense silence, both wondering if this was genuine or another manipulation. The cardiac unit where we were directed seemed to suggest the former. Harrison met us in the waiting room, his usual imposing presence diminished by obvious fatigue. Stress-induced cardiac event, he explained without preamble. Not a heart attack, but concerning enough. They're keeping her for observation. Is she okay? Emmett asked, genuine concern in his voice despite everything. She will be, Harrison said, then added pointedly, no thanks to the stress you two put her through. And there it was. The blame, the guilt, the responsibility shifted onto our shoulders, rather than acknowledged as the natural consequence of their own actions. We're sorry she's unwell, I said carefully. But we're not responsible for how she chooses to respond to boundaries. Harrison's eyes narrowed. You told her you wanted her to disappear. We said we'd rather have distance than continue in an unhealthy relationship, Emmett corrected. There's a difference. A nurse appeared, informing us that Faye could have visitors. She's asking for you, Harrison told Emmett. The unspoken message was clear. Just Emmett, not me. We go together or not at all, Emmett said firmly, taking my hand. Inside her private room, Faye looked smaller against the white hospital linens, an IV in her arm and monitors beeping steadily. But her eyes, when they fixed on us, held the same steel I recognized all too well. You came, she said simply. Of course we did, Emmett replied. We're upset with your behavior, not wishing you harm. She nodded slightly, then surprised me by addressing me directly. Simone, I've been thinking about what you said. I waited, not willing to fill the silence with reassurances. You said you'd rather have a healthier relationship, she continued. What does that look like to you? The question seemed sincere, though with Faye it was hard to be certain. One where our choices are respected, I answered honestly. Where gifts don't come with expectations attached. Where we're treated as adults capable of making our own decisions. Even decisions I think are mistakes? She asked. Especially those, Emmett interjected gently. Faye was quiet for a long moment, the only sound the rhythmic beeping of the heart monitor. I don't know if I can do that, she finally admitted, but I don't want to lose you. Then that's where we start, I said. Not with grand gestures or houses we didn't ask for, with small steps toward mutual respect. She nodded slowly, and for the first time in our relationship, I glimpsed something new in her eyes. Not warmth exactly, not acceptance, but perhaps the beginning of understanding. Whether this moment of vulnerability would lead to genuine change or revert to old patterns once the crisis passed remained to be seen. But as Emmett and I drove home later, we agreed on one thing. We would hold our boundaries firm, come what may. Some families are worth fighting for, not by surrendering to their dysfunction, but by insisting on something better.